right. Well, we're definitely going to finish today. Absolutely going to finish today. Um, I mean, if I really wanted to push it, we could probably. I could probably like rush us to the end and do the study guide today, but I don't feel like doing that. I'm too tired. Um, and I feel like that would be a little unfair. So, um, we're just going to get done today, and next Monday we're going to do the study guide, which should already be up on Blackboard, and next Wednesday we will have the test. So for you in here, just come in here and I hand you the test. You know how I work. And for my online students, I hope that Blackboard still behaves like it used to. This has been my first time using the new Blackboard system. I will put the test up on Blackboard. You'll go through the Respondus lockdown browser and do it through that. So that should work. So yeah. And then the paper is due 1st of October. Yeah. Just FYI. Okay. Any clarification about anything? Good. Cool. All right. Well, this is where we ended with sort of the outlying regions of the Hellenistic kingdoms, which, as I said, were kind of cool. They had like Greek or Greek-like rulers, which again is what Hellenistic means. And actually, the Greek coins are what are on the next one, which is where I could have gone to, but it sort of leads into everything else. So I needed to stop before I got too far. So, Hellenization means the spread of Greek culture and customs. Sorry, Greek language and customs or culture throughout the Hellenistic kingdom. So this is just basically the spread of just Greek in general. The reason that this spread was, well, Alexander's empire made Greek the language of commerce. If you were going to do any official business with any of the kingdoms under Alexander, you had to speak Greek. Now, this didn't mean that that was like the official language in all of the land and you had to speak Greek or whatever. No, you could still speak your native language in whatever region you were in. But if you wanted to do anything with the government, you had to learn Greek. If you wanted to trade beyond your hometown, if you wanted to do any like major travel levels of trade, which is the only way to make any real money, you're probably going to need to learn Greek. And this was the reason the Rosetta Stone was made. This was when the Rosetta Stone was made. It's got the same thing written on it 3 times. At the top is Egyptian hieroglyphs. In the second is Egyptian cursive. And then at the bottom is the official Greek. And when we finally found it, and by we I mean Napoleon, we still knew how to read Greek because that was like hardwired into Europeans forever because they were obsessed with the Greek culture. So they could read ancient Greek and they just translated backwards. And therefore, that's how we were able to now, to some degree, translate hieroglyphics because of this. And this was essentially almost like a not bulletin board isn't the right term, but like a just like a board posting telling you to essentially telling people to pay their taxes. Like it wasn't meant as a translation guide. It was just, hey, if you can't read the official language, then maybe you can read like the common cursive, but also here's hieroglyphics up here as well for, I don't know, some official reason. And thankfully for that, um, we were able to use that and helps us out a lot. That said, um, this wasn't promoted by the Greeks. There wasn't this big um, campaign to teach the native people Greek language. If you wanted to get ahead, you had to do it yourself. You had to learn Greek on your own. And there's this whole thing on page 93 about the complaint of a camel trader, um, where he's basically saying how the Greeks are pretty elitist, really, about all of this, and the only way to get ahead is to learn Greek, but learning Greek is a pain in the ass because there's no real, schools or anything to go to learn it. You have to do it yourself. It's a whole thing. Also, I should have had this on the previous slide, but here are the Greek-like statues, wow, coins that they found in India. So on the one side you've got an elephant, and on the other here you've got, it looks like a guy on a horse. Which is pretty cool. So the book goes into numbers of different philosophies. It does quite a bit with this, and I figured I'd briefly summarize them real quick. You've got the skeptics that doubt all knowledge. Cynics rejected basic conventions and just dropped out of normal life. So I don't know what stoners. Epicureans, purposeless nature of the universe, sought simple human pleasures. So maybe those are the stoners. I don't know. And then Stoics engage the world based on individual virtuous actions. This would be what you would see later with the good Roman emperors that weren't just out there having constant orgies and murdering their rivals. The ones that were actually hey, maybe I should make Rome not fall apart. Here we go. Eratosthenes. I need to remember how this guy's name is pronounced because it's very important. He calculated the circumference of the Earth. Now, there was a margin of error because of how the Earth isn't perfectly spherical. It's slightly oblong because of how gravity warps it. But he was pretty close. And also the fact that, he knew the sun was, or the Earth was round. People thinking the Earth is flat is very, very old, much older than the ancient Greeks. And then, of course, there's weirdos today that are just insane. But, conspiracy theorists. There's also Aristarchus of Samos proposed a heliocentric view of the Earth and planets, which is to say the Earth revolved around the sun as opposed to the sun and planets revolving around the Earth. but his writings were not widely known, so it wasn't until much later with like Copernicus and stuff that that idea really got out. Also, in Egypt, Ptolemaic scholars were allowed to dissect cadavers, which wasn't commonly something that people were able to do. You know, typically when a person died, you chunked them in a hole and didn't worry about it. Um, but with Egyptian uh, body preservation techniques, they were able to some degree, dissect bodies and get a better look at the insides of people and how they worked. And obviously, it wouldn't be until way later that they understood the body anywhere near like we do today. Like it was genuinely like the 1800s, early 1900s before we were anywhere near how we understand the body today. Literally George Washington in the late 1700s died of bloodletting. They were like, oh, well, you've got too much, bad bloods. We're going to let you bleed out while you've got malaria. And that worked out real well. So, yeah. But it was a step forward. Everything's a step forward in history. So I'm not gonna begrudge them that. It was important. So here we have this is Eratosthenes and the way that he did his measurement for the Earth. So basically, there was a well at Syene that at noon on a certain day, the sun shone straight down the well. There was no shadow. It was completely... Where the hell did my mouse go? There it is. The sun shone straight down the well. Whereas in Alexandria, which was a known distance away, there would be a certain degree of shadow. So what he did is, after measuring the distance between Alexandria and the specific arch, or the specific column, and the specific well, and then measured the shadow, and using lovely math, realized that there was an angular difference, and therefore the Earth could not be flat. There had to be a curve. And not only was there a curve, but that meant that the Earth had to be a certain circumference. And again, because of how close these two are on the Earth, because you can only go so far, in ancient Greece, there was a bit of a margin of error, but it was fairly close, relatively speaking. He was off by like a few hundred miles, which, considering the size of the Earth, isn't that much. So yeah, pretty impressive. And you still get weirdos today. They're like, there is no provable thing. It's like, dude, 300 BC. Over the horizon, bottom first. Yeah. Well, if you're good, you can magnify in and it comes back. It's like, but then it goes away again. Jeez. Yeah. Or like when you get higher up, you can see further. How's that work? Anyway. Also, now this one makes my head hurt. Now, like, logically today with, like, satellites and stuff, knowing that the Earth and the other planets revolve around the sun, that makes sense. But, like, being here on the planet, looking up into the sky, you see, the big fireball going across the sky in the same pattern as the moon does and the other planets, which I wouldn't have been smart enough to notice that the other stars move a different way than the ones that seem to stay static. I wouldn't have paid that much attention. I guess that's true. That's true. That is true. If you go out far enough in the countryside. But like this guy used this trigonometry to figure the distance between the Earth, the Moon, and the Sun, and therefore worked out that the Earth must be revolving around the Sun as opposed to vice versa. Like, okay, sure, my dude. That's amazing. Like, I mean, again, I'm not going to be some weird conspiracy theorist like, there's no way he could do that. Clearly he did it, but, like, that's beyond me. That's right. He did, exactly. Um, but, like, that's amazing. These people were so intelligent. Which, again, is why ancient alien stuff pisses me off. They're like, oh, there's a way these people could have done this without the help of extraterrestrial beings from another plane of existence. Like, dude, let these people be smart. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's like they knew what the hell they were doing. Come on. Anyway, um, so I talked about this before, where when it came to religion, the Greeks weren't. How do I, how do I put this? It wasn't so much that the Greeks were um, like really accepting of other religions. It's just that in their minds, their religion was completely universal, and everyone else just had different names for their gods, and that was cool. That was good enough. You know, if you went into a land and they were like, "Oh well, this is our chief god, and he does this," like, okay, cool, that's Zeus. Like, you can call him whatever the hell you want. We're not gonna get worried. We're not gonna get tied up about that. It's fine. They weren't that nitpicky, but it's like, cool, that's your Zeus. It's like, who's your water god? Great, awesome. You know, that's Poseidon. Wonderful. Who's the one that, because we know you've got a death god, right? Death god, great. Hades, awesome. You know, it's just like it was like, all right, fine. Which made it easier for these Greek rulers to rule over these vast areas, because if you go into a place and tell the people that they can't worship the gods that they've been worshiping for hundreds or thousands of years, they're going to be pissed. And they're probably going to try to overthrow you. But if you roll in and you're like, hey, keep doing what you're doing, just make sure you pay your taxes. It's not as big of a deal. Yeah, so like when it came to religion, which is it's going to be very similar when we get to Rome, at least at first, it was just understood that people had different names for the same thing. It's really crazy that like the three Abrahamic religions are like the most aggressive towards one another. It's like, but it's all this from the same books, guys. Chill out. Anyway, um, and literature. Even though we're still like technically in the Greek age, we're already getting this like classical Greek literature worship. Um, Venerated the classical Greek literature. Alexandria was this treasure trove of ancient texts. Ptolemy, in particular, believed that books were the best way to know the past, which, I mean, not wrong because it's written record. Um, in Alexandria, when a ship came through the port, they had to essentially surrender all records that they had on the ship um, to the officials, and like literally anything written down, any books, any papers, whatever. And if they had anything new, anything different, it'd be taken to the library, and the library scribe would make a copy of that book. If the ship in question had a particularly rare book on hand, it'd be brought to the library, the scribe would make a copy, and the ship would get the copy back. Like, no, we're gonna hold on to this for you. You can get the copy, but yeah, we're gonna hang on to this. And the reason we know a lot of what we know today is because of what was collected in Alexandria. Now, while the Library of Alexandria was famously burned down by the Romans, a lot of it was saved and evacuated, and like remained through various collections, and then eventually the monasteries during the Middle Ages and whatnot. But a lot of these copies, a lot of these records that would have not survived just time-wise were copied and made newer thanks to Alexandria, and probably wouldn't have made it to at least the Middle Ages to be copied again by the monks. So yeah, this is an important step in the fact that we even have this history, which is kind of a scary thought, that there are these choke points in the history of when we might have lost everything. Because, I mean, we did with, like, the Greek Middle Ages, or not Greek Middle Ages, the Greek Dark Ages. Like, we don't have anything from that period because it all just kind of went away. So, also, should be noted, Alexandria had a really cool lighthouse. They had, like, a fire up there, a big old bonfire sort of thing. And I want to say bronze mirrors, and it'd be used to, well, like what a lighthouse does. It'd be used to send light out and let ships know, hey, there's land over here. Don't come crashing into the rocks. But it was, well, again, it was an ancient lighthouse. Really cool. And here's a rendition of the Library of Alexandria, which, again, very sad day. Had the Library of Alexandria not been destroyed, we probably would know way more than we do. But then there's like people, they're like, oh, if the Library of Alexandria hadn't been destroyed, it would be 2,000 years further in the future. It's like, nah, it's not that dramatic. But we would know more detail about the past than we do. But I don't think we would have regressed that much technologically. So the art shifted from what we saw with the Athenians. They liked the peculiar and realistic, not necessarily idealized and perfect. Pieces were dynamic, full of energy, very unique. So again, different from the mathematically perfect. This is what we would see later on with Baroque art, which again is way later. But it's this very very lively art, and considering it's made of typically marble, it's amazing how realistic it looks. It's some of the, and as someone who is very much not an artist, Um, but I did spend a lot of time in the art department at Francis Marion. This is definitely some of the most impressive art I've ever seen. This and then like the Baroque period. Portraiture, busts of famous people. Um, and art was very regional, so each region kind of had its own style, but it was all very, very Greek. So each region did its own thing to a certain degree, but like with just Greece as a whole, they were still of the same culture. So now it's just that, but spread much, much wider, thanks to Alexander. Here is one of the more famous statues of the day. I can't remember the exact name of this sculpture. It's like Laocoon something. Um, it's a father and his sons who I want to say were going to warn Troy of the deception by the Greeks, and Poseidon sent these serpents up to attack them. That's why they're writhing in pain, being attacked by snakes. Several of the snakeheads have broken off due to age. I mean, he's getting bitten in the neck here, but the head's gone. But yeah, it's quite a dramatic piece. And then we have, I want to say this was maybe Plato? Or maybe just like some dude. Whoever it was, somebody didn't like him because they took his nose off. That's literally defacing a statue. That's what the term defacing comes from, is taking the nose off. But the way he's sculpted, it looks like you could literally put a torch in his hand and just like have him holding a torch, which is kind of neat. And then also the winged Nike, or winged Victory, and while she is unfortunately missing both of her arms, her head, and one of her wings, it is a magnificent piece. You can see, the feathers and the wings, and the way that the cloth drapes around her body. It's really, really detailed, and it's hard to. Again, this is like the sun thing. This is hard to comprehend to me that this is made out of marble. There's stuff that my brain just cannot comprehend, and this is one of them. I think I've got it there twice, yeah, for some reason. Okay. And that's actually it. Philip Alexander united the Greeks, took Egypt, defeated and conquered the Persian Empire, which had at this point seemed like just like a permanent fixture in the region, but now, just like we had with Persia, everything we've talked up to this point is now, well, sort of was under the control of one guy, but then once he died, it sort of broke apart. But they're still more or less united, at least culturally. And though it did only last as long as Alexander himself, this did spread Greek ideals further than even Alexander had imagined, as we said, into India and beyond, because culture is weird like that. Culture spreads beyond the planting of a flag or the tip of a spear, but just through trade and through word of mouth and through culture. And yeah, that's it. That's literally all I've got for this chapter. And I don't want to rush the study guide, so I'll save that for Monday. Yeah, that'll do it. So, see y'all Monday. Monday then.